Jake stood on his tiptoes, stretching to pin the last streamer across the living room ceiling. His fingers trembled slightly, but the ribbon caught the light, shimmering like a fragile promise. This party, his 16th birthday, could be different. It had to be. The air was thick with the scent of fresh balloons and the faint tang of old carpet beneath his sneakers. He pulled down a carefully folded invitation from the kitchen counter and smoothed it out on the table. The names were written in his neatest handwriting, each letter traced with a hope that it might matter. Please come. His eyes lingered on the list: classmates, teammates, even some from other grades he barely knew but wished he did. The edges of the paper curled slightly, as if tired of holding so much weight. I hope they'll come, Jake whispered to the quiet room, his voice barely more than a breath. The house was still except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the steady tick of the clock above the doorway. He folded the invitations with care, sealed each envelope, and lined them up on the counter like fragile dreams waiting to be delivered. Outside, the late afternoon sun filtered through the window, casting golden rectangles across the floor. Jake's shadow stretched long and thin, a quiet silhouette in a house full of silence. He glanced at himself in the hallway mirror, dark eyes, a nervous smile tugging at his lips. His hands, always a little shaky, clutched a balloon string tighter. If only they could see beyond the quiet, beyond the awkward. His mother's voice drifted from the kitchen. "Jake, dinner's ready." "Coming," he called, but his mind was elsewhere. This party isn't just a party. It's a chance, a moment to belong. Later, as dusk settled like a soft blanket outside, Jake checked the room again, music cued on his phone, snacks neatly arranged, the glow of fairy lights waiting to flicker on. He sat on the couch, heart pounding in the thickening silence. The invitations were sent. Now, it was waiting. The waiting that made the air heavy and the world feel too big. Tomorrow could be the day, or maybe it wouldn't. But for the first time in a long time, Jake dared to hope. His fingers brushed the edge of a balloon. He smiled faintly. Tonight, the dream is alive. ChatGPT. The clock on the wall ticked loud, painfully loud in the quiet house. Jake's eyes stayed glued to the front door. Every sound outside made his heart jump. Every creak sent a flicker of hope through his chest. But no footsteps came. He stood there, shoulders hunched, hands stuffed deep into his pockets. The balloons, once bright and cheerful, sagged in the still air. The music playlist ran through its tracks, looping softly, but it only emphasized the silence. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. The empty chairs around the table stared back at him. Empty plates waited untouched. The laughter he'd imagined, the jokes and the smiles, all vanished before they could even begin. Jake's throat tightened. Maybe they forgot. Maybe they're busy. Maybe this was a mistake. He rubbed his hands over his face, breathing shallow, fighting the sinking weight inside. He moved to the window, peering out into the darkening street. Shadows swallowed the porch light. Leaves rustled with the breeze. The neighborhood was quiet, too quiet. No cars slowed. No bikes rattled past. No voices floated on the wind. His reflection stared back at him from the glass, eyes wide, searching, aching. Why does it feel like I'm invisible? He swallowed hard, voice barely a whisper. I thought someone would come. The house groaned softly around him, the only answer to his words. Jake sank onto the couch, pulling his knees close. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. A single tear escaped, tracing a warm line down his cheek. Time folded in on itself. The waiting became a weight pressing on his chest. The party was supposed to be his moment, but the silence screamed louder than any music. And yet, deep inside, a small spark flickered, fragile but alive. Because sometimes, even in the loneliest hours, hope waits quietly for its chance. The silence around Jake was suffocating. But inside his mind, a storm was raging. Memories hit him like shards of glass, sharp, jagged, unforgiving. He saw the faces again, the sneers, the whispered rumors passing like poison through the halls, the cruel laughter that echoed behind his back, the way they called him names he'd never forget. Loser. No one wants you here. Why even try? He clenched his fists until his nails bit into his palms. His breath hitched. He remembered the weight of those words, how they settled deep inside, invisible bruises no one could see. In his mind's eye, the hallway twisted dark and narrow. Shadows seemed to close in. Faces blurred into a crowd of ghosts, mocking, distant. He saw himself, smaller then, shrinking away from the noise. Tears welled up, burning hot and raw. He blinked them away, desperate not to fall apart. Why do I even try? He wondered. Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't belong. His heart hammered in his chest, drowning out reason. Every hope from earlier felt fragile, cracked. He sank lower into the couch, pulling his knees up like a shield. The party was just a mirror, reflecting all the times he'd been left out, unseen. His voice was barely a whisper. What if I'm just broken? The room grew colder, the shadows longer. But beneath the doubt, beneath the pain, something deeper stirred, small, quiet. A stubborn flicker. A question. What if I'm more than what they say? But the voice was faint, drowned by the roar of his fears. He closed his eyes, trying to push back the flood. Because sometimes the hardest battles are fought inside. And sometimes the darkest cracks hold the first light of something new. The room was thick with silence, heavy and unyielding. Jake sat motionless, the shadows stretching like long fingers across the floor. His hands trembled, knees pulled close to his chest, every breath shallow. Then, ding-dong. The doorbell shattered the stillness like a sudden crack of thunder. His heart jumped, pounding loud enough to drown out everything else. For a moment, he froze. Should he answer? Could he? The doubt clung like a weight, pulling him back. Another ring. His eyes locked on the door, fingers brushing the doorknob, hesitating. Maybe it's just a mistake. But something stirred deep inside, a flicker of curiosity, fragile and unsteady. He took a breath, steeling himself. Slowly, almost reverently, he turned the knob. The door creaked open. Outside, standing framed in the soft glow of porch light, was a boy, a stranger. His face held a gentle smile, eyes warm and steady. Hey, he said simply, voice calm but full of kindness. I'm Alex. I saw your flyers. I wanted to come. Jake blinked, heart hammering in confusion. Why? He whispered, voice barely audible. Alex shrugged, the smile never fading. Because sometimes, being alone is the hardest thing. I figured you might need a friend. The dim room seemed to brighten in that moment. The harsh shadows softened, pulled back by the unexpected light of the stranger's presence. Jake's chest tightened. He swallowed, unsure how to respond. Come in, he finally said, stepping aside. Alex crossed the threshold with ease, his smile steady, unshaken by the emptiness around. Jake watched him, heart both wary and hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something new. The door closed gently behind them, sealing out the silence. The door clicked shut, sealing the quiet world behind them. The air inside felt heavy, filled with all the waiting, all the silence that had piled up around Jake like walls. But now, with Alex here, something fragile began to shift. Alex took a slow breath, his eyes scanning the room, not with judgment, but with understanding. So, this is the party? Alex said softly, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Jake shrugged, biting his lip. Yeah, not much of one. Alex nodded, stepping further inside. Sometimes the best parties are the ones nobody expects. Jake's gaze dropped. For a moment, the old fear clawed back, the fear that his voice didn't matter, that no one cared. But Alex's next words cut through the darkness. "Hey, I'm really glad I came." Jake looked up, surprise flickering in his eyes. He wanted to believe it, wanted to trust it. They settled on the worn-out couch, two figures in the dim light. The room felt less empty now, less like an echo chamber of loneliness. "I'm Jake," he said quietly. "Alex," came the reply. Simple, honest. The conversation started shaky, awkward pauses, small smiles that didn't quite reach the eyes. But slowly, like dawn breaking through the night, the walls between them began to crumble. Alex asked about school, about music, about the dreams Jake had stopped saying out loud. And Jake listened, really listened, to Alex's stories of struggle and hope. His fingers stopped trembling. His heart, heavy for so long, felt lighter. There was no judgment here, no whispers or sideways glances. Just two people connecting in the quiet. Jake found himself laughing, a short, breathless sound, like air after being held underwater too long. Alex smiled back, eyes bright. "See? You're not alone." The dim room seemed to glow, shadows retreating. The night no longer felt so endless. For the first time in a long time, Jake felt something he hadn't dared hope for, relief. He was seen, he was heard, and maybe, just maybe, he was not invisible after all. The phone sat heavy in Jake's hand, its cold glass screen reflecting the dim light of his room. His thumb hovered over the keyboard. He could feel the tremble, the tiny quake that betrayed his fear. What if no one answers? His heartbeat thudded in his ears, a rapid, uneven drum. The room felt smaller, air thicker. The silence pressed in, waiting. He took a breath. Slowly, deliberately, he typed, "Hey, I'm trying again. Would you come?" His finger hovered over the send button. One press, and the message would shoot out, floating in the invisible space between him and everyone else. A choice. A risk. Finally, he tapped. The screen lit up with a small, spinning icon, a heartbeat pulsing, a flicker of life. Seconds dragged like hours. Then, the vibration. A new message. "I'll come." Jake stared. "I'll come." His breath caught. The words felt like a lifeline, a spark against the dark. The corners of his lips twitched upward, almost a smile. He stared at the screen, fingers trembling, but this time from something else. Hope. He typed back, "Thank you. It means a lot." The screen glowed softly, the only light in the quiet room. Outside, the night seemed a little less heavy, the silence a little less sharp. This small message, the first ripple, was a beginning. Jake sat back, chest rising and falling, his heart slowing. Maybe this time would be different. The courage to reach out was the hardest step, but now it had been taken, and everything else would follow. The first knock came softly, tentative, like a question. Jake froze, heart pounding in his chest. Another knock, louder this time. His hand trembled as he pushed the door open. And then, the flood. One by one, people stepped inside, faces bright with smiles, eyes warm with welcome. The silence shattered. Laughter spilled into the room, bubbling up like a spring finally breaking free. The music kicked in, deep and pulsing, a heartbeat that filled every corner. Jake stood near the door, breath shallow, watching the room come alive. His chest swelled with a strange, new feeling. Hope. A group moved toward the center, forming a circle. Silhouettes danced, bodies swaying in rhythm. Light spilled from hanging bulbs, casting golden halos around each smiling face. Jake's eyes glistened. Someone reached out, pulling him into the circle. "Come on, Jake," a voice urged, a friend, a stranger, a lifeline. His feet moved before his mind caught up. Stepping forward, breaking the last barrier inside him. The room no longer felt cold or empty. It was warm, alive. Every laugh, every cheer, every clap echoed inside him, breaking down the walls of doubt. He saw faces he recognized, classmates, neighbors, no longer distant, but close. He caught eyes with Alex, who smiled wide, nodding encouragement. Jake's smile grew. The music throbbed. He laughed, the sound bright and free, like sunlight piercing through clouds. For the first time in what felt like forever, he belonged. The doors had opened, not just to the party, but to something bigger, something he thought was out of reach, acceptance, and with it, the courage to keep moving forward. The music surged like electricity through the crowded room, pulsing in time with Jake's racing heart. Lights spun overhead, casting kaleidoscopes of color that danced across sweaty faces and shimmering eyes. Jake moved, really moved, for the first time in what felt like forever. His feet found rhythm, shaky at first, then sure, then free. Laughter bubbled from deep inside him, raw and bright. It wasn't forced or polite. It was the sound of release, of walls crumbling, of loneliness shattering into 1,000 sparks. He spun, arms wide, catching the glow of sparkling bulbs, catching the smiles of new friends. Each face was a mirror reflecting a piece of himself he thought lost. I belong. The room wasn't just a place anymore. It was a home. Hands reached out, clapping, pulling, encouraging. Someone shouted his name. Jake caught their eyes and nodded, a surge of electricity passing between them. He laughed again, breathless, spinning in the light. No shadows here, no whispers of doubt, only the thunderous beat of connection, of acceptance, of freedom. He saw Alex beside him, grinning wide, eyes shining with pride. "See," Alex said over the music, "you were never alone." Jake's chest swelled. This moment, this night, was a rebirth, not just a party, a turning point. The past still lingered in the corners of his mind, but it no longer held him captive. Tonight, he danced with courage. Tonight, he laughed with hope. Tonight, he belonged. The music didn't stop. Neither did the light. And Jake, once invisible, was finally seen. The music faded. The laughter softened into a gentle hum. Jake and Alex found themselves at the edge of the room, where the shadows met the soft glow of a single lamp. The noise of the party became distant, like a memory slipping away. Jake's chest rose and fell with slow breaths, his eyes tracing the lines of the ceiling as if searching for words. Alex's gaze didn't waver. It held steady, warm and steady, like a quiet promise. No need for words. Not yet. Their hands brushed, just a flicker, a meeting of skin that spoke louder than any sentence. Jake's fingers tightened slightly, grounding himself in the moment. The weight of the night, of loneliness and rejection, lifted, replaced by something fragile, something new. "Thank you," Jake finally whispered. Alex nodded, eyes shining. "Not just for tonight," he said softly, "but for letting me in." Jake swallowed hard. The truth was clear. This was more than a party, more than a single night. It was a beginning, a chance to rewrite his story. In Alex's presence, the heavy silence that once suffocated him transformed into quiet strength. Hope settled gently in his chest, a seed ready to grow. Jake's lips curved into a small, honest smile. No more waiting, he thought. No more hiding. Just this bond forged in the glow of soft light and shared courage. Two strangers turned friends. Two souls finding their place in a world that finally felt big enough. The night whispered promises. Tomorrow waited. And Jake was ready. The night sky stretched wide above the quiet neighborhood. Stars blinked softly, distant yet brilliant. Tiny fires scattered across the endless dark. Jake sat on the porch steps, the cool wood beneath his hands grounding him. His eyes lifted upward, tracing constellations he once thought unreachable. The world was vast, but somehow that vastness didn't feel so lonely anymore. He smiled, the kind of smile that grows from deep inside, raw and real. No one had come at first. The silence had threatened to swallow his hope whole. But then one knock, one stranger, one light. That small spark had changed everything. A single voice had broken through the noise of doubt. A single presence had made the darkness recede. Jake's heart beat steady now. His mind replayed the moments, the hesitant hello, the shared laughter, the quiet understanding. He realized something powerful sometimes. It only takes one. One person who sees you. One hand reaching out. One chance. The night air whispered around him, cool and calm. And in that silence, Jake felt a fierce new truth. He could be that one for someone else. The world was full of lonely stars, but one light could ignite a galaxy. The camera slowly zoomed in on Jake's face, hope shining in his eyes, courage settling like a quiet fire. The soft glow of dawn began to touch the horizon, hinting at the new day to come. Voiceover rose gently, carrying the weight of all he'd lived. No one showed up at first, but one person changed everything. Sometimes it only takes one to light up a whole world. The stars twinkled one last time, then faded into morning's embrace. Jake stood, shoulders straight, ready, because he knew now the power to change was in him, and in all of us.